Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. In this video we will see the cerebellum part 2. We have covered already the gross anatomy and anatomical subdivisions in the cerebellum part 1. You go through that video, then only it will be easy for you to follow this topic. We have already covered the spinal cord, medulla oblongata, pons in the previous neuroanatomy lectures. Those who have not subscribed to our channel, do subscribe now. Ours is a complete anatomy channel. So do subscribe now, keep watching the videos. Now we will move on to the topic cerebellum. We have completed the anatomical subdivisions in the previous video. In this video we will see the morphological subdivisions. So before we start with the morphological subdivisions, you should know it is very interesting. This heel toe test, we have to walk like this on the straight lane by heel toe alignment. So that is the function of archicerebellum. So this is the way of testing the cerebellar functions. If you have any patient coming to you and you suspect cerebellar dysfunction, then one test is heel toe test, which tests the archicerebellum, and another test is the heel shin test. You should ask the patient to move the heel over the shin of them. So that is the heel shin test, that is the neocerebellum. So like this we have many tests to test the cerebellar dysfunction. So we will start with this clinical provoking test, so that you will have the interest to know what is archicerebellum, what is neocerebellum. We will see if you see continuously in this lecture, you will understand the function of archicerebellum and neocerebellum. Before we start with the morphological subdivisions, you have to answer this pre-test. So you have covered the anterior and posterior lobes and flocculonodular lobe in the anatomical subdivisions of the cerebellum. Now you should be able to answer these questions. Do you know the parts of the vermis? What are the parts of the vermis and corpus cerebelli present in anterior lobe of cerebellum? You check yourself before we move on to the morphological and functional subdivisions of the cerebellum. Now the morphological subdivisions of the cerebellum, that is the transverse subdivisions. We have the first, the archicerebellum, otherwise called vestibulocerebellum, which will contain the flocculonodular lobe along with the lingula. This is concerned with the maintenance of equilibrium, tone and posture of trunk muscles. So it is the vestibular cerebellum or archicerebellum. Paleocerebellum or the spinal cerebellum, it consists of entire anterior lobe but except lingula, because lingula is already in the archicerebellum. Entire anterior lobe except lingula and the pyramid and uvula in the posterior lobe. This is concerned with the muscle tone and posture of the limbs. Neocerebellum or the cerebropontine cerebellum, which is containing the rest of the cerebellum. This is concerned with the smooth performance of the skilled acts by the coordination of the movements. So now you should have understood archi means which is the oldest to develop in the evolution. Then comes the paleo, then comes the neo. So this neocerebellum has been developed in the evolution in the recent times. So now comes the functional subdivisions of the cerebellum or the longitudinal subdivisions. So besides the flocculonodular lobe, the corpus cerebelli is subdivided into 3 zones longitudinally. So one is the cortex of the median zone, which projects into the nucleus fastigiae. This is concerned with the movements of the trunk and extensor muscle tone only through the vestibulospinal and reticulospinal tracts. We have now in this, if you see, this is the median zone, intermediate zone and lateral zone. Besides the flocculonodular lobe, it is divided into 3 zones longitudinally. We have completed the median zone. Now we will see the intermediate zone. Intermediate zone projects into the nucleus globosus and emboliformis. This controls mostly the ipsilateral movements and the flexor muscle tone through the rubrospinal tracts. Conjoined action of median and intermediate zones is focused on the postural control of axial and limb muscles. These are very important for the gait. Cortex of lateral zone, which projects into the nucleus dentatus. This regulates the coordination of the limb muscles, distal limb muscles, that is the hand and foot, for the skillful prehensile acts through the dentato-rubro-thalamo-cortical pathways. So this is the lateral zone. We have completed the morphological and functional subdivisions of the cerebellum. Morphological is the archicerebellum, paleocerebellum and neocerebellum, and functional subdivisions will contain the central, lateral and intermediate. Now it is the quiz time. What part of the cerebellum is included in the archicerebellum? What is the function of the lateral zone of the cerebellum? You answer these questions, then we will move on to the next slides. Now we are going to see the internal structure of the cerebellum. Internal structure of the cerebellum, or the histology of cerebellum, or the microstructure of the cerebellum, consists of three layers. So outer molecular layer, which consists of stellate cells and basket cells. Intermediate layer, which consists of Purkinje neurons. So you can appreciate in this is the outer molecular layer, this is the outer molecular layer, and this is the inner layer, and this is the middle Purkinje layer. Middle Purkinje layer. Note the single line arrangement of Purkinje cells. So if you observe carefully, it will be single line arrangement. It is very interesting, and we have to remember this slide by this arrangement only. And this Purkinje neuron is an example for a large size neuron. So this also you have to remember, Purkinje neuron is an example for a large size neuron. So we are continuing with the layers of the cerebellum. Inner layer consists of granule cells and Golgi cells. And these are the functions of these cells. If you see, all of them except granule cells are inhibitory in nature. So now it is the quiz. How the Purkinje cell layer is arranged. Have you observed in the previous pictures how it is arranged and what is its interesting feature? Note the single liner. This is the diagrammatic representation you have to draw in the histology like this. Outer molecular layer, inner granular layer, and this is the middle Purkinje layer. So this is the gray matter and this is the inner white matter. So here is the white matter and this is the gray matter. In the inner white matter we have the nuclei. So what are the afferent fibers for the cerebellum? Two types of sensory fibers. They are of climbing fibers and massive fibers. They are the two types, predominantly derived from the inferior olivatory nucleus. Do you know, can you recollect now where we have seen the inferior olivary nucleus? Yes, in the sections of the medulla oblongata we have seen the inferior olivary nucleus at the level of the olive. So that from that nucleus climbing fibers. All the other fibers will be now called as mossy fibers. Climbing means we will learn why it is called climbing in the next slide. So it is like this. This fiber is climbing over the neurons. That's why it is called as climbing fiber, that is over this neurons. Other fibers will be called as the mossy fiber. So we have to know this important part, cerebellar glomeruli. What is cerebellar glomeruli? So a rosette of mossy fiber in the center, surrounded by claw-like dendritic extensions of granule cells, and the axons of the Golgi cells. So two different cells are there, dendrites of the granules and axons of the Golgi cell. In the middle is the rosette. This is rosette of mossy fiber. This is ensheathed. Total glomerulus is ensheathed by the Bergman glial cells. So this may be asked as very short or MCQ for you, cerebellar glomerulus. So this is the cerebellar glomerulus. Center is the mossy fiber and the dendrites of the granule cells and the axons of the Golgi cells. The entire glomerulus will be surrounded by the Bergman glial cells. Deep cerebellar nuclei. From the deep cerebellar nuclei, so the input we have seen. Now the output neurons. From the deep cerebellar nuclei, axons of the nuclei are called as the final efferent pathway. So quiz, what is cerebellar glomerulus? How it is formed? So check yourself, then we will move on to the next slide. So we are continuing with the cerebellar connections. We have three connections we have already learnt: inferior peduncle, middle peduncle and superior cerebellar peduncle. So mainly afferent fibers to the cerebellum pass through the inferior peduncles and it will be also called as astiform bodies. So what are the afferent fibers? From the spinal cord, posterior spinocerebellar, from the cuneate nucleus, cuneocerebellar tract, from the spinal cord, rostral spinocerebellar tract, and anterior external arcuate fibers. At least you should know the names of the tracts if this is asked as separately. The tracts continue: vestibulocerebellar tract, olivocerebellar tract, para-olivocerebellar tract and reticulocerebellar tract. Efferents from the inferior cerebellar peduncle or cerebellovestibular to the vestibular nuclei, to the reticular nuclei and to the olivary nuclei. So they are the cerebellovestibular, cerebellovreticular and cerebello-olivary. So if you see the middle peduncle, afferents is the pontocerebellar fibers. So they form the cerebropontocerebellar circuit. No significant efferents pass through the middle peduncle. So this is the cerebropontocerebellar circuit. From the cerebrum to in between we have the pons, then to the cerebellum. We have learnt in the pons pontine nuclei. From the pontine nuclei, this cerebropontocerebellar circuit passes through the middle cerebellar peduncle. So again the quiz. What are the tracts in the superior cerebellar peduncle? Both afferents and efferents. At least you should know the tract's name so that you will understand the peduncles. Now we will move on to the next. Superior peduncle, also called as the brachium conjunctivum. Here mainly efferent fibers from the cerebellum. Afferent are anterior spinocerebellar tract, tectocerebellar tract, trigeminocerebellar fibers. Mainly efferent fibers from cerebellum, predominantly from the dentate nucleus. Efferents are two sets: dentatothalamic fibers from the dentate nucleus and to the red nucleus they are the cerebello-rubral fibers. So with all these tracts, what are the functions of the cerebellum? You should have learnt elaborately in the neurophysiology. It maintains equilibrium, muscle tone, posture, coordination of skillful movements by regulating the grade of the muscle tension between the agonist and the antagonist muscle. So Sherrington regarded the cerebellum as the head ganglion of the proprioceptive system. So this is checking the cerebrum to the muscles pathway is every time checked by this cerebellum. That's why he has regarded this cerebellum as the head ganglion of the proprioceptive system. So we have completed the morphological functional subdivisions, also the peduncles of the cerebellum. We have come to the applied anatomy. The lesions to the cerebellum may result from trauma, vascular occlusion, tumor or pathological conditions. Even infections also will cause the cerebellar palsy. So if the archicerebellum is disturbed, disturbance of equilibrium. Neocerebellar syndrome, then we will have the disturbance of muscle tone, muscular coordination, tremor, hypotonia, so that we have the ataxia, dysmetria and intention tremor. Even we will have the paleocerebellar syndrome if paleocerebellum is affected. So summary of cerebellum. In part 1 we have learnt the anatomical subdivisions. In the part 2 we have learnt the morphological and functional subdivisions and also the peduncles in detail. Even we have learnt the afferents and efferents of the cerebellum. So you watch both the videos of the cerebellum so that you will be able to present the answer for the question if the cerebellum is asked in the exams. So post-test, how this archicerebellum is and neocerebellum is able to do or able to control this pathway. When it is affected, we have the disturbance in the heel toe and heel shin test. Can you correlate the pathways, how it is reaching these muscles? So this is the, we have to learn by the clinical syndromes and interacting the neuroanatomy and neurophysiology, how this archicerebellum and neocerebellum is able to control these pathways so that if they are affected, we have disturbance in this two tests. So correlate the pathways so that you will be able to understand the functions of the cerebellum more. We have completed the cerebellum in the two videos. With the next topics of midbrain, fourth ventricle, we will continue in the next neuroanatomy lectures. Those who have not subscribed to the channel, do subscribe now. Keep watching the videos. Thank you.